Um, so I saw Superman. I saw it at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. We saw it, my girlfriend and I. I was talking about this with a lot of people. I think regardless of where you stand politically, because I don't know why everything has to be politicized now, but it does. And sometimes it's necessary, and sometimes I feel like we can go without it. But whatever you stand on, as far as a political spectrum goes, I think we can all agree that everybody is just so gosh darn mad. Whatever it is, there's so many reasons for people to be upset nowadays. Um, but I feel like this movie, whether it was intentional or unintentional, I feel like the director James Gunn directed the movie. I think he said it so himself. Like, we just wanted a really fun, uplifting movie, and they definitely did that. They definitely nailed the head on having an uplifting story. It was heartfelt, very charismatic, very fun, high energy. Uh, the characters were great. Character development was really well done as well. But it was fun. It was really fun. The story was really good. There's some loose moments there, and there's a lot of. This is what I was telling people. It's a great story, but I do feel like there are some moments in the story where I felt like it was a bit overloaded. Because this is it's a new story, a new take on Superman, and I think there were moments in the story where I was like, this is a lot for people who aren't familiar with comic books. You're familiar with Superman, but you may or may not be familiar with like how a comic book works, and just how it doesn't really, every book doesn't set you up right away. It's just, you know, run, go, 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 whether you're in from the beginning or not, it just keeps going. So I think that was a little confusing for people. Moments for myself too, as a comic book reader. I wasn't a huge DC comic guy. I read a lot more Marvel comics. Marvel was always my go-to. DC was more like, I watched like the animated show, like Justice League Unlimited. You watch Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, CW's The Flash series, and that universe. That was my DC fix, right? I didn't really see any DC movies. I never really was a DC movie person, aside from like Dark Knight trilogy. I think I might have seen Superman Returns, the Brandon Routh one. I don't really remember. But all that to say, I didn't really pay too much attention to DC. But it was mostly Marvel comics that I really gravitated towards when I was younger. As I got older, however, I started reading more DC. I started getting more involved in DC because at that point, I'm in high school. You're like you're getting into Marvel Phase 2. You got your Winter Soldier. You got your Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, all these movies coming out. Iron Man 3, Thor 2. We're there, right? And amongst all that, you get this film, Man of Steel. Henry Cavill. This is again another iteration of Superman that I felt, with the few Superman things I knew of, I felt it was a real drastic change. I think it was a lot darker, which was, I guess, the intention. It was a lot darker. It didn't really have that Superman-esque humor, nor it didn't really feel like Superman, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people share that sentiment as well. It just wasn't for me. Not to say it wasn't a good movie. It just felt very odd. It was very mixed matched, the story and whatnot. It just wasn't really great. So I kind of tuned myself off DC. I watched other movies, like I did see Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad. Wonder Woman I thought was great. Aquaman was an interesting movie. Batman v Superman I think was a real disappointment. And then both Justice League movies I did see, and they were okay. It was okay, but it was very forgetful. I wasn't like anticipating watching any of these movies over again or wanting more. So going into this movie, I was a little hesitant because you had just come out when they announced that there was a new regime for DC. You just had, I believe it was Black Adam had just come out, and you had Dwayne Johnson, who was really like involved in this movie. I think he was involved with Black Adam for like 11 years at the time. He really wanted this movie to come out, and he was attached to it forever. So finally get this movie out, finally get this movie in theaters, and lo and behold, it's also around the same time that DC is taking this change. You have James Gunn coming from Marvel, not going to be the head of DC. And I'm like, dude, you just announced these movies, or this movie's coming out. You had Blue Beetle coming out. I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if enough time's passed, to be honest. You had Peacemaker 2, Peacemaker Season 1. And then I hear it's James Gunn. I was a fan of the Guardian movies. I liked them. I didn't think they were great. It wasn't really my go-to. So hearing that he's going to be taking over DC, I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is a good fit. I don't know if this is what we want. I saw The Suicide Squad, Idris Elba, Margot Robbie, John Cena. I was like, I don't know if I want this kind of humor with Superman, you know? I almost had I had the same fear as like when Thor Love and Thunder came out. It's like, okay, this is a different director, obviously. It's with Taika Waititi and Chris Hemsworth, but I'm like, you know what? I don't know if this is what I want for DC. I don't know if I want DC to be more of a comedy series, you know? And then I hear who's involved. I hear the story for Superman, the early stages. I pay attention to these things. I read the news sheets and whatnot, and the YouTube and whatnot. Shout out to like New Rock Stars, Christian Harloff, Real Rejects, sites and shows like that keep you informed on the going movie news. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not set yet, but I want to get involved. I want to get more involved. And then I see who they cast. They cast David Cornsweet. I knew nothing of his work. I wasn't a huge shall I say David Cornsweet fan. I didn't know anything of his work, but he's been a part of a couple of movies. He was just involved in Twisters, Politician, Look Both Ways, Pearl, a lot of great things, I guess. Affairs of State, and I was like, okay, he's kind of an unknown guy. Kind of unknown. You get Nicholas Hoult, who's been a part of a couple of franchises, Mad Max series, X-Men, our Lois Lane, who was a part of a show, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, her name, Rachel Brosnahan, there you go. So a couple of things: The Amateur, House of Cards, Blacklit. That's how I knew her from. I knew her from House of Cards. A lot of great movies or great characters involved, actors involved, and I'm like starting to get more and more excited for this film. And then I see the first image of Superman. So you get this image of David Cornsweet as Superman, the first official image of Superman. And you hear that they're going more traditional comic book. You hear that he's getting the underwear back. He's getting bright colors and all these things back again. And I see this for the first time. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm in. And there were a couple of reasons. One, I loved that they were going back to the comic book color. And I love that they were going with the base of the show or movie was All-Star Superman, which is a great comic book. I actually had a copy of it. I lost it when I was moving, so I don't have it anymore. Kind of sucks. But you're going off of All-Star Superman. This is the comic book version that I wanted. Very traditional Superman. Aw shucks, Christopher Reeve style Superman. I loved the crest that they used. It's in resemblance to Kingdom Come, which is another comic that I am familiar with. That's actually one of the first comics I ever picked up from DC, was a Kingdom Come. So that was really cool. I love that everything was different. Everything is different, but still felt the same. Because again, you go from Christopher Reeve to then Brendan Routh, who had the suit that Tom Welling from Smallville. You had that suit. They're all somewhat similar. You make a drastic change with Henry Cavill, right? So going from these, I know Brandon Routh was in between these gentlemen, but right here. So you have these as your phases of DC, right? Christopher Reeve there, traditional all-American Superman. Brandon Routh carrying on the legacy of this version, so technically these two are one and the same. And then you had Henry Cavill come in and be a drastically different take on Superman. Again, not my Superman, but I respect what he did. So to go from all that to then this gentleman here, David Cornsweet, I love the emblem, the crest of Kingdom Come. I love that the colors were vibrant. And I love too that the suit, you notice too, like the suit isn't like a latex. I guess the best comparison I can make, it's not like sticking onto his skin. You know, it doesn't look like a muscle suit. He fits the suit. The suit isn't fitting to him, if that makes sense. And I thought that was really nice too. You see the creases in his uniform and whatnot. And I thought that was really cool. And it just felt different. And I really, really love that. So again, coming in, I said, you know what? I'm optimistic. And then I hear that they're bringing in other characters. They're bringing in Guy Gardner's Green Lantern. They're bringing in Hawkgirl. They're bringing in, Metamorpho, and they're bringing in Mr. Terrific and, Ultraman and all these characters. And then I got scared again. I was like, dude, this is a little much. I don't know if that's a good idea. This is the first movie out of the gate, and you're already like, it reminded me of like Spider-Man 3, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. There was so many characters in that movie, and there was just a lot of stuff going on, and I feel like that was a big detriment to that film. So finally, we watched the film, and right out the gate, I thought it was really cool going back to like jumping into a comic book. It wasn't a typical origin story. It was very much like, hey, they did it like a Star Wars crawl. Like, hey, this is what our universe is. This is the story we're following. This is where our character is right now. Here's where his mindset's at. Let's go. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. And I thought that was excellent. In that first minute and a half of the film, I was like, you know what? I'm sold. Let's do it. The first scene is him getting his ass kicked. He literally falls into the ground, into, the Arctic, and he's bloodied, he's beat up, cracked ribs, bruised liver or whatever, kidney ruptured. Like, he's messed up. Just got his first loss, his first shellacking, if you will. I feel like it was really important to do that right out the gate because, again, going back to Henry Cavill's Superman, he's so unstoppable. Well, you never really see him bleed. You never really see him hurt. He was just invincible. Like, how do you humanize that? How do you make people relate to that? And I feel like having to right out the gate show him vulnerable, show him in pain was really important. And I think it was really smart. And then you bring in his trusty sidekick and the goodest of boys. You bring in Crypto, the dog. And I love that he wasn't just like a traditional super dog. He was a dog. Dogs are annoying. Dogs are gonna chew up your shoes. Dogs are gonna piss on the floor when you don't want them to and make a mess of things. He's a puppy, and I love that because, again, it's something that the audience can relate to. It was something that everyone can gravitate towards. you know? And you see Superman beat up, and if you don't know, like, Superman gets his powers from the sun, yellow suns to be exact. There's different reasonings, like red suns make their powers a little more or less potent, I guess, with the correct term, but you basically are a little more vulnerable. He uses the yellow sun to heal himself, and this is going to be kind of, a little triggering if you have had anybody having to go through treatment, and or whether it be chemo, radiation, or anything like that. Just a fair warn, going to be making comparisons to my mother was going through cancer treatment for 4 or 5 years, right? And if you've ever had to be a part of that, never had to watch somebody endure therapies like that, it's hard because you see them that they're fighting something right now. They literally had radiation going through their veins. Seeing him in his chair having to endure the sun, and you see him in pain. It's not like he's just sitting there and it's like, all right, guys, let's do that. No, he's literally screaming, howling in pain. And I couldn't help but relate to that with my mom, when she was going through chemo treatment and, having the aches and pains and the side effects to chemotherapy. Seeing that really helped me relate to this character a lot more as well. And immediately as soon as he's done, or he wasn't even done, I think it was like 80% full power, and his robots are like, you can't go back out there, dude. Like, this guy just kicked your ass. Like, you can't go back out there. And again, being the person that he is, he's like, nope, I gotta go there. There's people in trouble. They need my help. And I think that's what I admire most about Superman, is that it's not that he has to do these things. He wants to do these things. He wants to be of service. And that's something my parents had always taught me, is to always be of service to people who can't do it themselves. Be just a genuine human being. Be good to people. And I couldn't help but see that in this movie. At every moment where someone was in peril, somebody needed help, whether it was talking to people or just genuinely just getting into a scrap. So you get into these things and Superman's fighting, he's making sure, and I love too, like in each of the fight scenes that were in this film, there were like multiple moments where Superman is saving somebody from peril, right? There's a giant kaiju attacking the city. This woman is under the foot of this kaiju and she's about to get smushed, dude. Like, she's gonna be a pancake. Superman just swoops in, saves her, lets her down gently as gentle as he can be, lets her down gently, and doesn't instead of just going away immediately, he notices that she's scared. She's gonna have a panic attack. She's breathing heavy. She's not okay. Takes that extra second to make sure this person's okay before going back into the fight. And I thought that was amazing. I think it really, again, just showing that human quality of a god among men, and see him as Clark, which I was kind of upset about. That's the only gripe I had about the movie, is that they didn't really give enough time with Clark. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 scenes they had with Clark Kent, and I really wish they put more of that in there, like him at the Daily Planet hanging out with coworkers, and Jimmy Olsen, who has the most motion I've ever seen out of any human. This man just gets it whenever he wants, apparently. I'm not familiar with the Jimmy Olsen character, but by God, sheesh, that man must be having the best time of his life. Golly. You see a lot of Lois Lane, Perry White, and the whole cast of characters within the Daily Planet later on in the film, which I didn't realize was a 12-minute scene. James Gunn had put it out there that it was like a 12-minute scene that they recorded. She's asking him about the situation that he's involved in. People were making comparisons to this event in the film to outside things going on right now in the world. There's an occupation going on in a certain part of the country in this movie, and some people will say it related to certain parts of what's going on right now. I'll let you guys, have that iteration and, decide that for yourselves. But she's asking him about it. And it wasn't even that she was asking him too. She was like, she's interviewing Clark as Superman, and she's like drilling into him like, hey, you kind of represented America right now. And he's like, no, I wasn't representing America. I was representing me. I was representing the good of humanity. And she's like, well, they don't see it that way. Why would you do this if you weren't allowed to? Did you get clearance from the president, the Secretary of State, or whoever? And she's just like, as a journalist would. And he gets upset. He gets flustered because, again, he's human. And he's like, I just wanted to do good. People were gonna die. I just wanted to make sure nobody got hurt. Again, that's a great thing with Superman. And you kind of understand her character and you understand Clark a little more. And then you get into Lex, Nicholas Holt's character, who I think, again, I'm not really too familiar with DC Comics, but this Lex really felt like, it felt like when you have a jock in high school and you like question their masculinity, like how tough they are. That's kind of how I felt with this Lex. He's like the alpha male guy that thinks he's the best human in the world, top of the top. And then here comes this individual in Superman who threatens that. Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor then becomes this man who's afraid because he's being challenged. His masculinity is being challenged. And I thought that was a very interesting thing to do. And I thought it was a great foil. And he's explaining himself very well. He's like, look, I don't like metahumans. I don't like them. I think they're weird. I think they're crazy. But I really hate this guy. I really hate Superman. So much so, he doesn't even call him Superman. He doesn't call him a human. He doesn't call him a person. He calls him an it. And that's a bold, thing to do. And I thought it was handled really well. And I think Nicholas Hoult deserves a lot of credit because the emotion he exudes when playing Lex really puts into perspective of like people's emotion, right? I'm telling myself the words intimacy, but it's not. It's insecurity. People's insecurities from other people. You think you're tough shit, and then you see somebody else come in and they can do whatever you do, but twice as bad or twice as good, and you're like, oh shit, people are gonna know I'm not the coolest guy in the room. And that's intoxicating sometimes. And I think they did that really well with his character. So much so is where you see later on in the film that Lex creates all these ways to try to prove Superman isn't as good as he is. He creates the giant kaiju. He is in line with the president of the country that's trying to occupy the other country, Baravia. He's in line with the president of Baravia so he could fuel his pocketbook, so he could sell weapons or give weapons up for free and get land. And sounds very similar to certain things that are going on today, and I thought that was executed very well. And again, going back to the questioning of masculinity, you're trying to find ways to make this person feel less than of you, so that way you could feel your ego, to the point where Lex infiltrates the Fortress of Solitude, breaks in, hacks into Superman's network, and finds the message. This has been in every Superman movie ever, but Jor-El, Superman's Kryptonian father, giving him a message of sending my son down to Earth, be good. You know, that monologue. Lex Luthor finds it, but it's only half of the video is shown. But Lex is able to, again, spoilers, he's able to uncover the rest of the message. And it's basically just Jor-El telling, you know, Clark or Superman, just like, hey dude, you gotta take over the world, and I need you to give me some grandbabies. Which was crazy. Like, you know, like, you need to start a harem. And I was like, what the fuck are we talking about right now? That is insane. Again, going back to reading a comic, whole story of like Krypton's demise is that Krypton was overusing its resources. There wasn't a lot of resources now to go around. They were being depleted. Jor-El, being a scientist, is like, hey, we need to like figure something out, because this is not going to go well. And everyone telling Jor-El like, you're crazy. And then the planet goes to shit, and Jor-El's like, I told you guys, the world's going to shit. So him using Superman now as an outlet to say, hey, you need to start this thing over again and get us back in our prime. Okay, I'm sending my seed so that you can spread other seed to make a new Krypton, you know. You see a lot of comparisons to like the Invincible series. It's basically that. And for them to go there with Jor-El, I thought was interesting. You get back to Superman, and Lex, you know, exposes this to the world, and he's like, hey, this guy's not a good guy. Superman is not sunshine and rainbows. He wants your children. He wants your daughters. He wants to start his own hierarchy, his own harem. He wants to take over our world. And that's why you should let me take him down. He's giving an excuse as to why he needs to save his masculinity, his power, is because it was threatened so badly to the point where this guy needs to go into this motherfucker's home and do a B&E and spread this message to the world, which then you later find out is actually true. Because for a while I was like, well, this can't be. He faked the message, the second half. He faked the second half. That's not how it goes. We're gonna find out, and it's gonna be fine. And then you find out that no, dude, that's the real message. And it was like, whoa. Hey, yo, my brother in Christ, what so are we getting freaky like that? What's going on here? And it's really cool, because now you really see Superman questioning everything. He's questioning himself. He's questioning the morals that he has. He's questioning why he does what he does. And I think this is the only comparison I'll make to like a Marvel thing. Bucky in Falcon and Winter Soldier, when talking about the Shield and talking about Sam Wilson becoming Cap, he talks about how him and Steve Rogers talked about it beforehand, and he was like, you know, Steve thought he was right about you, and you giving up the Shield is you telling him that he's wrong. And if he's wrong about you, then he's wrong about me too. And I feel like you can make that comparison with Superman in this moment, because his whole life he's thinking his parents sent him down there to do good, right? Because again, he only sees that first part of the message. Like, I'm here to do good. I'm here to be of service. I'm here to be the best possible person I could be, because that's what my parents told me to do. And now everything that he's been doing is now come into question for himself, and it's a question of identity. It's a question of like, well, am I this person? Am I supposed to be this person? Because who I thought I'm supposed to be apparently is not who I'm supposed to be anymore. So who am I? Am I wrong? Am I not doing the right thing here? That moment too, when fighting the kaiju and all this, this story breaks out, you're introduced to the Justice Gang. You're introduced to Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific. And they're all like, hey man, you're cool and all, but I don't know if this is a good look, this isn't okay. And you got Guy Gardner, who, if you don't know in the comics, is an absolute dickwad. He is the scummiest Green Lantern you may know. It's like, if you need someone to do something really good and like help out genuinely, you get like Hal Jordan. Yeah, you get like Jon Stewart. If you need someone to do something a little shady, but for the good reasons, and you need someone to not ask any questions and just get the job done, you call Guy Gardner. That's the kind of guy he is, right? So you get Guy Gardner like questioning everything about Superman, and Superman's like, dude, back off. I'm just as confused as you are. Give me some space. And you have Mr. Terrific, who is a little more friendlier with Superman, who is one of the stars of this movie. He steals some scenes in this movie. And he's like, look, man, I wish I could help you. But this isn't a good look, man. This is not a good look, And genuinely being a friend, too. So Superman comes to the conclusion where like he needs to prove his worth. He needs to prove that he is who he says he is. And tells Lois like, hey, I'm going to turn myself in. Bro, they're thinking about capping your ass. What do you mean you're going to turn yourself in? He's like, I need to prove that I'm good. Also, Lex may or may not have stolen my dog, which is like the dickest thing you can do. You don't touch another man's dog. If John Wick taught us anything, you do not with another man's dog. Okay? Do not mess with a man's dog. That little puppy is just trying to be the goodest boy he can be, and all he wants in life is pets, cuddles, treats, and occasionally to poop on somebody's lawn. That is all this boy wants. Don't mess with a man's dog. Terrible human being. But yeah, so Superman turns himself in, and he realizes Lex has crypto, and he's like, you know what? He's scared. He's a puppy by himself, probably locked in a cage. He's terrified. I need to make sure he's okay. Again, showing how much of a good boy this guy is. He's trying to figure out if he is truly a good person while still giving you examples as to why he's a good person. Like just constantly reminding you like, hey, he's a good guy. So he turns himself in to Lex and his goons. They end up just beating the shit out of him anyways and tossing him into this like pocket dimension. This is where the movie becomes a comic book movie. You already have kaijus, you have an imp floating around, you got super like Green Lanterns and Supermen, but this is the part of the movie where it's like this is so this is where you're in or you're out. He figures out how to open a pocket dimension. First of all, you don't want to share this with the rest of the class? Luthor, you don't want to let everyone else know that you were able to do this thing? Like, you're just gonna keep this for yourself, dude? That's a whole other thing. But I thought we were going into the Phantom Zone. It's a prison in DC Comics where you send the worst of the worst. It's like a prison. That's where I thought we were going, and I was like, what the shit is going on? You go into this pocket dimension, and Lex basically has like people in cages, not cages, but boxes, glass boxes. I don't like people in cages right now. I'm just saying there's some comparisons to be made. Um, and he goes in there and he locks Superman in this box with who you now are introduced to, Metamorpho. Metamorpho is this really amazing character. An accident happens with him. He becomes elements. He can create elements with his body. It's phenomenal. If you haven't read up on Metamorpho, it is so cool. He's a really interesting character. Turns his hand into like a block of kryptonite, which is like Superman's weakness. Big Blue is scared of a green rock. That it just works. It works. It's comics, man. And Lex is like interrogating him, and he brings in like these regular people, like people Superman has met on the street. Like he brings in this guy who gave Superman falafel one time. I forgot why. I think it was like because he was saving his store from getting robbed or something. Like I don't remember what, but brings in this guy, and he's playing Russian. This is where it gets like pretty like dark too. Lex is playing Russian roulette with this falafel guy, trying to get information out of Superman. And I'm thinking this is going to be like a long interrogation scene. This is intense, dude. I don't know how this is going to work. Caps him with the second shot. Takes the chrome to the dome on the second try. And Lex is just standing there like, well, guess I gotta find someone else to use. Like, what the dude? Like in front of Superman, and Superman, again, being this Boy Scout, is like in tears because this innocent person now is gone because of his choices. And you feel that weight of guilt on Superman. And he's just crying, and he's like, he's in pain, genuinely in pain, physical and emotional pain. And dude, it was so well done. Bring it to this moment of like real, and it's dark, and they make you sit in that scene. Like you have to live in that scene. You're sitting there and you're like, holy shit, like this is rough. This is rough, dude. So you go back to the Justice Gang, and Lois is trying to figure out what's going on because she's like, is this true? She's still like trying to defend Superman's honor, you know? Shout out to gentlemen, you get yourself a good woman in your life who will go to bat for you, okay? You find yourself a good woman who will put the work in and make clear your innocence. Sheesh. That's a woman right there. So she goes to the Justice Gang, and she's like, yo, something's not right. We need to go get this guy out of here. I gotta find him. And Guy Gardner, being the jackass that he is like, dude, this doesn't concern me. I don't need to get involved. This is not my fight, okay? I need to look good in a bowl cut, okay? And chill out. You're on your own. Hot Girl, played by Isabella Merced, who I think, that's the only thing too I had a gripe with. I feel like she needed to do a little bit more. I feel like she didn't really have a lot of time in the movie. I really wanted her to do more than just fly around, beat people up, and scream. She really had no part in it either. And then you get to Mr. Terrific, who's like, dude, look, I want to help you. I want to help, but I can't. I can't because they're superheroes under contract. They work for the government. And he's like, dude, I can't. Even if I wanted to, I can't help. You know? So Lois is like, fine, I'll do it on my own. She gets in her Prius, and she's going to go drive to wherever Superman is. And then Mr. Terrific comes out, and he's like, you know what? Screw the government. You know? I got a flying saucer. Let's go take a ride. This is one of the funny moments too. Like Mr. Terrific, if you don't know, is like this genius. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He's a billionaire. He's a black belt in multiple forms of like martial arts and stuff. Like he's genuinely a badass. He has these T-spheres that he can use with his hands. He makes certain motions, and the T-spheres can like hack into things, use as a weapon. It's really, really cool how they use him in this movie. They go in and they find this secret base that they're holding Superman. And this is one of the cool, again, I'm not a huge fan of Guardians, but this is the most Guardians thing that this movie has. Mr. Terrific then puts Lois in this like force field. All these soldiers are trying to attack them, and Mr. Terrific is just, he's just hitting people left and right with T-spears, and he's just not a give, dude. He's just floating around, bouncing around, knocking people out, and you're just in awe. You are just in awe. And Lois is just standing there like, what is going on, dude? And nothing, like, it was the coolest scene ever. It was the coolest scene ever. So cool, dude. So finally they find the pocket dimension, they find Krypto, they find Superman. Metamorpho has a change of heart because Lex is also holding, that's another thing too, up. Lex Luthor kidnaps a kid, like an infant. Metamorpho has his child held in the same glass box directly in front of him as like a torture mechanism for him to help him keep Superman down. And Superman's like, look, dude, I'll fly next door. I'll break your kid out. Just let me heal up real quick. And Metamorpho is like, dude, there's no sun around here. We can't heal you. Because again, the kryptonite is like, it's hurting Superman. He's like, I can't make you a sun, but I could turn into a giant star. So he gets all the elements and he's like mixing them together, and he just creates this giant star. And like a gangster, dude, Superman gets up and he just punches the shit out of this glass, knocks out the guy that's holding the baby, gives the baby back to Metamorpho. And there's this chase scene in this river. I forget what the river's made out of, but it's like toxic or whatever. Very comic book. This whole scene, this sequence is very comic booky. And again, if you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. I was locked the in, boys. I was so locked in. Lois and Mr. Terrific break them out. Krypto is just the greatest boy in the world. He has a couple of great moments in this scene. And then they break him out, and Superman's obviously super injured. And they're like, look, dude, we're going to try to figure this out. Like Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, and, they're like, we're going to try to figure this out. You guys need to get him out of here. You need to find somewhere to keep him hidden. You got to find him a place to, because technically he's a fugitive. Superman's a fugitive now. And it's like, you need to get him somewhere safe. Do you know anywhere he can go where no one's going to with him? Cut to Lois flying him over to the Kent house. Yes, you see Mom, Pa Kent, who had a quick interaction in the beginning of the movie during a phone call. And the amount of times I was just smiling every time his parents were on screen, because they were just genuinely worried about their kid. This was not an adoption, like, this is not their adopted kid. This was their boy, their son, and they're genuinely concerned. They want to help him out as much as they can. And Pa Kent's like crying his eyes out. He's like, please help us with my boy. Is my boy gonna be okay? I love my son. And it just really got to me, dude, because the kindness that you saw in Mom and Pa Kent is what, like, I see with my parents. Cut to Superman waking up in his childhood bed, and Krypto again being the bestest boy. Krypto is just laying on his stomach, wagging his tail, making sure his buddy's okay, and Clark's sitting there on their front porch, and he's just contemplating life. He's like digesting everything that's gone on, and he's asking himself, like, am I a good person? Is this who I'm supposed to be? Am I who I'm supposed to be? Am I a fraud? Am I wrong? And you see Pa Kent come out, and he's just he's not scolding his son. He's not, asking him all these questions. Immediately gives him this comfort and this feeling of like regular, like normalcy. And he's like, hey, me and your mom went to this like burrito stand with the neighbors the other day, and it was pretty good. Remember when we used to take you there when we were kids and or when you were a child, and it's still the same place. It's still there, and yada yada. Hey, your girlfriend's really cool. And it was nice because, again, Pa Kent, and this is where you see the comparisons with Superman and Pa Kent, like where he gets his kindness from was Pa Kent. And I feel like that was really nice that they really made a push to emphasize that in this movie. And Pa Kent's basically just like, look, man, we're not, the goal of parenting is not to tell you how to live your life, We are the ones that we just give you tools. We tell you what we think is the best thing to do, and we hope that you try to be the best person you can be. But every other decision is your own, We just hope that you make the right one. And I couldn't help but think about my parents in that moment because, all my life, my mom has always told me, like, your name means everything, And everything you do reflects the name that you have, your last name. And again, that's why I try to do the best I can and be the best I can to people, because I'm not just representing, myself, I'm representing my family as well. So hearing that from Pa Kent, so you cut to Ma Kent watching the TV, and she's like, hey, something's going on over here. And you see on the TV that there's the occupation that they keep talking about, that Baravia is now finally going to occupy this land, and these people who are just innocent workers and whatnot. And the president is, just saying to take them all out, and it's really dark. And this is where I really cried openly. Like, I openly was like just teary-eyed. These kids get this stick and draw the Superman crest on this flag, and they lift it up, and they're just shouting, Superman, Superman, super. And like, dude, it was so powerful, dude. It was so powerful. And like, you see Clark just like, I gotta be there. I gotta go there. I gotta help. It was a funny line too. His mom was like, I washed your boots. I cleaned your suit up for you. Let me go grab them. Like a typical mom, she was just helping her boy out. And then Mr. Terrific comes into the scene again, and he's like, hey man, I know this is going on, but there's some shit going on back home. And Lex is trying to open up this pocket dimension again, but everyone's like telling him, hey man, if you do this, you'll literally split the world in half. This is not good. And he's just like, screw it. I'll stop when there's a city I care about. So again, he's just a shitty guy. I peeled the sticker and I don't know where. I have nowhere to put this sticker, but I don't. Anyway, I'll figure it out later. So yeah, Lex is just like, screw it. I don't care. When there's a city that I care about, then I'll stop. But until then, we're just going to keep on going. Okay? Drill, baby, drill. Sorry. Superman's like, I can't be in two places at once. I got to figure something out. We got to help. I got to stop Lex, but I also need to help these people. So finally, the Justice Gang goes and helps. Guy Gardner helps the people out in Baravia, or being attacked by Baravia, which is a great scene. It's really cool because you got Metamorpho, Hawkgirl, and Terrific out there helping, or Terrific's with Superman. And then Lex is just splitting this world in half, and Superman's fighting off Ultraman, or is now you get Ultraman back into the scene. You get the engineer, who is the one who helped Lex crack the code on the video of Jor-El, and he's fighting these guys off. And you find out again, this is another moment where it's like very comic booky. Superman fights Ultraman. Ultraman loses his mask, and you find out that Ultraman is a clone of Superman, which is not like too far off from the comics. Technically, like in the comics, the clone of Superman is like a Bizarro. It's like an alternate. It's complicated, but there's a clone of Superman in the movie, and that's where I was like, I don't know if people are gonna like how much is going on here. This is another moment where I was like, this is a little bit too much comic book. But again, if you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. And boy, were people in, man. In my theater, people were like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And like Ultraman like has every fight move that Superman has, and he can counter. Lex is playing it like a video game, and he's just like, I can beat you because I'm smarter than you. And Superman's just like, sure, you may be smarter, but like that doesn't mean anything, you know. I still have more heart than you. And he beats Ultraman. He takes down Lex. Mr. Terrific, like a gangster, comes into the scene. He's rewriting this code that Lex put in to reverse the effects of the world being split. And one of Lex's goons is like, oh, I could help you. I'll help you out. And he's like, I don't need your help, dude. And he like shoves him away. And he's like, I'm goddamn Mr. Terrific. And I was like, yeah, dude, that's so cool. It was so cool. Yeah, and then everything goes, you know, back to normal and the movie's over. no, you know, and it's really great because you have this last scene, or one of the last scenes, Lex getting mad and he calls Clark an alien, and this beautiful, I don't want to say monologue, but like this moment where Clark looks at Lex and he's like, that's where you've always been wrong, dude. I am as human as anybody else. I get scared, I mess up all the time, but I put one foot in front of the other and I try to be the best I can than I was yesterday. Something along those lines. And again, that's where I felt so good about this movie, because again, like I've had moments in life where I am like almost like imposter syndrome, where I'm like, is this who I am? Is this like, am I supposed to be this kind of person? Like, this is how I was brought up, but then now people are telling me it's wrong. And like, is this who I am? And it was really reassuring for me, because if Superman feels that way, then it's normal for me to feel that way. And if Superman can get over that, then I can get over that. And I love that people now, after watching the movie, I see people on TikTok and stuff like, you know, what would Superman do? What if he was in my position, what would Superman do? And I think that's really cool. And I think that's what I love most about this movie, is that it's making people want to be better. It makes people want to be the best versions of themselves. And I was not expecting that from a movie, and not nonetheless a comic book movie. And I'm just so glad that this movie came out when it did. Because I think, especially now in society, now more than ever, I think we really need something to make us all feel good and make us all want to do good. And that was pretty much it. I mean, you know, everybody gets a happy ending. You know, Lex goes to jail. Ultraman gets sucked into that pocket dimension universe. Lois and Clark reassure their love for each other. And Jimmy Olsen just still has more game than any man on the planet. And the Justice Gang, you start to think like there's a inkling that they may not be the Justice Gang anymore. You know, might be referring to the Justice League. And it was just a really great movie. It tied in really well. And I think this is the last scene of the movie. Superman is getting ready to take in Yellow Sun, and you see Krypto, and he's just being a good boy. And you hear this like loud thud in the Fortress of Solitude, and everyone's like, what the fuck is going on here? And you get this cameo from Supergirl, which my first thought was, dude, where the hell were you? Where have you been? Okay. And again, I'm not really you know, I don't really know a lot about DC Comics, so I didn't really know much about Supergirl's character. And she comes in and she's like drunk as shit. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And then Superman, almost as if he's breaking the fourth wall, like looks at the camera almost and is like, yeah, so this is my cousin. She likes to go to planets with red suns and just get drunk. And she's just a partier. Doesn't really, she doesn't really give a shit. So she's just, yeah, that's her. And then you find out that she is Krypto's owner. Because in the movie, like, Clark explains to Lois, like, he has a dog, but it's more like a foster situation. And then you find out in this scene that it's Supergirl's dog. Krypto is Supergirl's dog. And you know that because as soon as she sees Krypto just tackles the shit out of her and is just bashing her into the floor. And they're just like, so that's why he has behavioral issues, is because his owner doesn't know how to. Cool. And Supergirl leaves. It was a fun little cameo. And the last scene is Superman taking in Yellow Sun. And I thought this was a really beautiful change, because when he first takes in the sun, he hears the video, the first half of the video from Jor-El about like being a good human and whatever. And this scene, in this version of him taking in the Yellow Sun, one of his superbots says, hey, put on his family videos. It keeps him calm. It soothes him. Instead of the Jor-El video, it's just home videos of Ma and Pa Kent when Superman's younger. And man, that was the third time I teared up, because I was like, dude, that's beautiful, man. Because again, learning, you are what you're taught. Superman was taught by his Earth parents to be a good human. And that's why he does what he does, you know. And I feel like that was really beautiful. And I love that James Gunn's explanation for this movie is that it's an immigrant story. And if you think about it, like, it's kind of true. Like, he's not from here, you know. He's from another planet. He is technically an illegal alien, literally and figuratively. So for him to find his American dream, in a sense, and find out his worth that way and how he incorporates it to society that way, I thought was really fun. And it was a really beautiful way to end the movie. And I came out of that movie feeling so good about myself, about my life, and I think everybody deserves to feel that way, and I think everybody deserves to feel good. And if you don't, do yourself a favor and go see Superman, because it makes you feel amazing. So I gave this movie a 9.5 out of 10. Again, there were a couple of moments where I was like, the pacing is a little off, you know, sometimes, and I think the story could have been fleshed out a little better, but for what the movie makes you feel, it kind of compensates, and I think it was just really, really well done. And I had a really great time. I had a really great time with this movie. I had a really great time with this movie, and I am excited now to delve into this universe and start picking up more comics. I think that's what you should know too, is like, reading comics really helps when watching comic movies. Like, I read Civil War when Captain America Civil War came out. It is very different. It's a different adaptation than the comic, but it's good to read, you know? And I think this is really cool too. So I think this movie will definitely help comics and get people into comics, and just see where the universe goes next. And I think James Gunn really knocked it out of the park. I think David Cornsweet was amazing as Superman. I think he's a really great guy, you know, aside from being an Eagles fan. I think he did a really great job. Rachel Brosnahan was amazing as Lois Lane. I wish we kind of had a little more to do with her as well. I think that would have been really great. And Nicholas Hoult, man. Nicholas Hoult was great. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, really well done. Isabella Merced as Hawk Girl. Again, I think I wish we had a little bit more to do with her. And scene stealer of the entire movie was Mr. Terrific. I get scared to say his name because I don't want to botch it. Was Eddie Gathegi. Eddie Gathegi. If I mispronounce the name, I apologize. But he was phenomenal, man. He stole every scene. He was absolutely incredible in every scene that he was in, and I cannot wait to see what they do next. I think it was really, really well done. Shout out to them. And yeah, man, Superman's cool. That's another thing too. God dang, dude, there's so many things that I keep forgetting about this movie. One of the call signs that Superman has when he's having his interview with Lois is like, you know, I'm just a punk rock kid. Like, she's like, I'm punk rock. Like, I listen to this, and this. Like, she's alternative, you know, she's very rebellious, and Clark's the exact opposite. He's like, well, I'm cool. I listen to this band. And she's like, nobody listens to that band. It's like if you met a girl and she listened to like Green Day, and you meet her for the first time, and you're like, oh yeah, I like alternative music. I like Nickelback. It's not the same. It's not the same thing. Like, he's trying to relate to her, and I think that was really sweet. And she's like, you know, I don't trust everybody. You trust anybody, and that's dangerous. And he's like, well, I just see the good in people, and maybe that's the real punk rock. Maybe being good is punk rock. And if you could describe this movie in any way, I think that's the best way to describe it, is that being good is punk rock. And I think that's my motto for the rest of this year. So thank you, James Gunn, and everybody involved. I cannot wait to see what else you guys have in store. It was absolutely amazing.